The Collin Klein effect is a real thing.
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at Monopoly Go. Game off. We got to talk about Monopoly Go. The fast-paced game lets you team up with friends for tournaments to unlock awesome prizes like unique stickers for trading, cool playing pieces, and hilarious emojis for taunting your friends. So download Monopoly Go now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. The Collin Klein effect is real, ladies and gentlemen. And you might say, well, Andrew, what does that mean? What is the Collin Klein effect? Well, we're going to talk about it. The Collin Klein effect has to do with efficient, clean offense. We've talked about a little bit of numbers, Collin Klein-wise. We've talked about schemes, about all that. But I think these numbers that we're going to run through might be eye-opening because I think y'all are going to go, man, like that offense was a well-oiled machine last year for Collin Klein's Kansas State team. So, first of all, third down conversion percentage. There is no more important play than third down. Third down is what decides, are we still on the field or are we heading back to the sideline and letting our defense potentially get scored on? No, you want to be on the field. You got to convert on third downs. Well, last year, Collin Klein was pretty darn good at converting on third downs. The Wildcats last year of Kansas State were 90 for 188 on third down conversions. That's a percentage of 0.479%, right close to basically 48% of the time they convert on third down. And you might go, well, Andrew, where does that put them in college football? 11th best in college football last season. And then you might go, well, Andrew, where are the Aggies? They were their percentage on third downs was 43, which was not terrible comparative. They're top 50. I think they were like 35 in that range. I didn't write down where they were, which is crazy, but it was lower than 30, but it was in the top 50, lower than 30. And it was in the 30 to 40 range, I believe. But the point here is a lot of these numbers I'm going to run through last year, was Texas A&M awful at these numbers? No, they weren't awful. But Coach Klein's offense was better. And that's my point. Listen, some of these numbers that we're going to run through in this, you're a couple of these things going your way last year if you're Texas A&M from 2 more wins. You know, I mean, you can nitpick in the close games, in the Ole Miss game, in the Alabama game, in football games you were in. A few things like this go your way, and you win those ball games. And Collin Klein's offense was just better at these things. So the next thing is turnovers. Collin Klein's offense turned the football over a total of 12 times. 2 fumbles and 10 interceptions. So that puts them at a really, really good spot. They were I believe it was number 11. And they are tied for 14th, They were tied for 14th in that. Texas A&M, 15 turnovers. Not awful, not terrible. I believe it was 10-5, 11-4 around there. Interceptions to fumbles. They were 15 turnovers for the Aggies last year, which was good for 33rd in college football. Not terrible, not awful. But here's the point, okay? So that's the difference in 3 turnovers for you mathematicians like me out there. Here's the issue with it. You go, well, 3 turnovers, what's the big deal? We could look back at Texas A&M's games last year, and maybe we could find 3 turnovers that change a football game. This stuff matters. I would be happy to sit here and say, hey, they turned it over one last time because turnovers are that important in football games. You can't give the other team the football. A lot of times turnovers happen and they set up the opposing team in a really good field position more times than not. So the point here is Coach Klein's team took care of the football better than Coach Fisher's team did last year and Coach Petrino's offense did last year. This is the one that really, really stood out to me in its red zone offense. And this is something I talked a little bit about this on a show 2 months ago probably, but this stat really is going to stand out to you. So last year, Kansas State was in the red zone 65 times. They scored 51 touchdowns. And you go, okay, that's great. That sounds good, right? What was Texas A&M? You might wonder. Texas A&M was in the red zone 61 times, 4 less times, and they scored 36 touchdowns. You know who we saw too much of last year, if you're a Texas A&M fan? Randy Bond. Love you, Randy. Don't want to see you unless you're going to kick a little extra point. But that's the reality here. When Coach Klein was in the red zone, his football team scored touchdowns. Once again, I'm going to throw a little wild trivia question here at you. If you're a football coach, would you rather score 3 points or 7? Pretty simple answer there. I think we can all agree. And that's the point here. Last year, we saw a lot of Randy Bond. Not a lot of Conner Weigman. He obviously was hurt, but your quarterback celebrating with receivers or your running backs getting picked up by offensive linemen for touchdowns. We didn't see enough of that. We saw a lot of Randy Bond. And you don't want to see him a lot. You want to score touchdowns. Touchdowns win football games, especially if you're playing the LSUs of last year, the Ole Misses, who score a lot of touchdowns. You have got to score touchdowns. You cannot trade field goals for touchdowns with teams. You got to be trading touchdowns or scoring touchdowns and your defense not letting them score touchdowns. So the other number I got here is rushing offense. Kansas State last year, 204 yards per game on the ground. That's good for 11th in college football. The other stat here is Kansas State was 21st, in time of possession, holding on to the football for 31 minutes per game. Ladies and gentlemen, that'll play. The point here of all of this is pretty much every single offensive category except for passing. This was a team that liked to run the football. Kansas State is top 25 in pretty much every offensive metric across the board. Not every, pretty much every offensive metric. Why? Because Collin Klein is really good at his job. We can sit here and talk about how great Coach Elko's hires were. Love Tommy Moffitt. Like Bateman. Really like Coach Cushing over there with the offensive line. Collin Klein is an absolute stud. I've said it. Aggie fans, enjoy him because he will be a head coach very, very soon. He is that good of a coach. I'm just telling you, this offense this season, and this is one quote that we discussed on a show once again, 2 months ago, from Coach Elko talking about Coach Klein is going to adapt. There's not really a Coach Klein offense. And there he is. He obviously has things he likes to do and schemes he runs, but he can adapt to personnel. If you have a pocket passer, if you got Tom Brady, you're going to throw the football a lot. Obviously you're still going to run the ball to your backs, but you're not going to have a quarterback running the ball. When you have a quarterback like Conner Weigman, he can do a little bit of both. But once again, I don't think you're going to see a ton of quarterback run plays drawn up for Conner Weigman, especially knowing that he's coming back from the injury. We know he's not 100%. So Coach Klein's going to adapt to what's in front of him. And what's in front of him, I think he can have a healthy balance on his offense. I think he can run the ball with some great running backs, and he can throw the ball with a really good quarterback room and some solid wide receivers. So he can really do what he wants with this Texas A&M offense, and that's exciting. But once again, looking at these numbers, this should get you excited for next season because it's pretty simple. They get the job done. It's not always pretty. Sometimes last year for Kansas State, it was grinded out on the ground. Yards, pick up yards when you can. Doing a good job on first down, making it 2nd and 6, 5, or 4, not 2nd and not 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That is what his offense does. That is what he did last year. And with the talent he has on this roster currently, I think you're going to see that carry over. So my point here is this. Collin Klein is a really good offensive mind. He's a very good coach. He's learned from a lot of great coaches. I think that he is just turning into an absolute incredible offensive coordinator and soon to be an incredible head coach, I think, which is, I hate to say it, but I just think that's coming in his future. So this is the Collin Klein effect. I think this is what you're going to see. I think when we look at these numbers this time next year, we're going to be saying, man, look what Coach Klein did at this offense in 1 year. He turned all of these numbers. We took Texas A&M from 40th, where they were last year, to 17th in this metric. Improvements win football games. Getting better at statistical categories lead to wins. That's what Coach Collin Klein is going to do with this offense. So I love seeing these metrics. Coach Klein's a star, and his offense is going to be really good next season with really good personnel. Who is the key at each position for the Texas A&M Aggies? We're going to talk about it, and I have a few names here that I think might surprise you. We'll have that conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, got to tell you about our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home that huge win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So who is the key at each position for the Aggies? Key to success, key to a 9-win season, whatever you want to call it. Quarterback, I obviously didn't write down quarterback. We believe that's Conner Weigman. There's no really need to get into that. So now we're going to get into it at running back. And this is, piggybacking a little bit off what we discussed on yesterday's episode of Locked On Aggies, as you everydayers know. That's going to be Ruben Owens. And I got some comments, which once again, appreciate some folks said, hey, Andrew, I'm thinking Le'Veon Moss is going to be the guy. And maybe I'm overplaying the Ruben. Maybe I am creating the Ruben Owens hype train, and it really shouldn't be there because Le'Veon Moss is going to be the guy. And once again, would that surprise me? No, it wouldn't surprise me if Le'Veon Moss ended up being the guy. As I said on yesterday's show, Le'Veon Moss is an incredible running back. But I think the key is going to be Ruben Owens. I think we know what we have in Le'Veon Moss. He's a great runner. He's powerful. He can do it all. He can catch the football. He's obviously, I look at him, he's a running first guy, not really a pass catch first guy, but he can do it. He can do it all. He's strong. He's powerful. He's fast. He can run around you. He can run through you. Everything you need from a running back, you can get from from Le'Veon Moss, but I think Ruben Owens is that X factor. I think he is the key to success at the position because you know what you got in Le'Veon Moss. You don't really know what you got in Ruben Owens yet. He showed flashes last year, but those flashes, they were flashes. They weren't really, hey, this kid's dominant. I think this is the year that we could really find out, hey, this kid's dominant. So for running back, it's Ruben Owens. Then for wide receiver, this one was hard because in all honesty, there's 3 names I could have said, but I did end up going with Noah Thomas. I just think what we saw in the spring game was a real preview for this season. He just can make some tough catches. He's strong. He's tall. They want to get him stronger in the weight room, but I'm telling you, he looks big out there. He looks tall out there. He looks strong out there. And I think that if he has a massive season, this wide receiver room is going to be great. I think if he takes that step and then, others can be complementary pieces. I've started to sing and this is a heat check. Once again, if y'all think I'm crazy, let me know in the comments. But I'm starting to lean toward Noah Thomas maybe being the guy. I was on the Ja'Day Walker hype train for a while. Now I'm thinking maybe it's Noah Thomas. I think he's going to have a good season. I know that the staff has some goals for him in the offseason to put on a little bit more muscle, and that'll help him stay healthy. And I think he's going to be able to do that. It's not hard for these college athletes, these world-class athletes to do that, especially when you got Tommy Moffitt helping you do it. So at receiver for me, it's Noah Thomas. Then at tight end, it's Donovan Green. I know you've got some other pieces there. They just went and got the kid out of the portal. You got a couple guys out of the portal previous. You've still got some great guys on the team from last year's team. It's a room with a lot of guys, and I have a feeling that one guy is going to kind of maybe take over as tight end too and maybe surprise some folks, but I still think Donovan Green, as long as he's good to go and healthy, and we did see him in a yellow jersey at practice. So if he's doing that in spring ball, I feel pretty confident he'll be good to go for game 1, but he is getting healthy, and I think he's a really good player. Same thing I said last season heading into the year. I think the ceiling is through the roof for Donovan Green, and obviously the injury was devastating, and it's not easy to come back from an ACL tear. Makes it hard to cut, makes it hard to make moves, but I do think he can get the job done. At offensive line, I have two names. So had Bryce Foster still been on this roster, it would just – so I wrote down Trey Zune and then Collin Fui, and I'm going to have to learn how to say his last name. I've tried to find film, and it's hard to find. So we'll get there. Might have to DM him on Twitter. Hey, let me know, buddy. I need to know how to pronounce this right. But we're going to keep calling him Collin until we get confirmation on that. But Trey Zune would have been my X factor if Bryce Foster was still on the roster. So I do have Trey Zune 1 and 2 here, but I think it's got to be Collin. I mean, he comes in, he's more than likely going to be your starting center unless something crazy happens. He started 8 games last year for Utah. And I think that this season, if he's not good, it's got to be tough. He's got to learn the system. He's got to get in tune with his quarterbacks when it comes to snapping. He's the quarterback of the offensive line. He's going to be pointing out, okay, linebacker's going here. You got him. It's a tough job playing center because there's a lot of mental to it. It's not just see, block, run over, stop him from getting behind me. And obviously you still have to do that while also calling things out for your teammates. It's not an easy position to play. So those are my two X factors. On defensive line, this is boring, but I have Nick Scorton. And the reason I have Nick Scorton is because you need him to have 8, 9, 10, 11 sacks. I think for this defensive line to be – and there's other guys, obviously, in this room that can have a ton of sacks. We all know that. But I just have this feeling, this thought in my head that you need Nick Scorton to be the monster we think he can be, the menace to SEC quarterbacks we think. You need him to prove it. You need him to do it because I foresee at least, probably about 25% of Texas A&M sacks coming from him. So if he finishes the year with 5 sacks, we're going to go, oh, man, I think that you're going to want to see 8 to 12 from him. Hey, I'd take 20. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but I'd take it. So that's who I have at defensive line. I get that's a bit of a punt, and there's other guys you could say, but I just think you need him to be so good that makes him the key to this defensive line. And then a linebacker, this is different. Everyone's expecting me to say Terry York, and for fair reason. But kind of like I said with Le'Veon Moss, I know it was only 1 year, but I kind of think we know what we have in York now. He's a really good football player. He's not going to do much wrong. He's not going to guess the wrong gap. He's not going to make mistakes like that. So I have Scooby Williams. I think Scooby Williams is going to be that player, of course, the Florida transfer. I'm starting to get more and more confident that he's going to be the starter. And I just think that he's a guy who you need to be good. You need another linebacker that can really stand out. I think he can do that. So assuming he wins the job, I know there's other names there, but I don't think he's going to be one of the young guys. Is it going to be the recent transfer from Pitt? I don't know about that. So I think Scooby Williams is your guy, and I think he can have a really good season. At corner, I've got the Cal Poly transfer, Donovan Saunders. Made a lot of good plays in the spring game. We heard a lot of positive things about him in spring practice. And you really need a corner. Who's it going to be? Who's going to step up? We have some corners on the roster that you had last year. There's a lot of guys who could step up. I just really liked what I saw from him in the spring game. I think you could see Donovan Saunders really develop into a star. He is a player, to me, it's a great example of exactly what the transfer portal should be. A player that was at a lower level of college football. He did really well, showed a ton of upside, and now he's making the move to a higher level. So I think he is a prime example of what you need, and I think he could be the key. He could be the X factor for Texas A&M's corner room. Then at safety, now that Bryce Anderson is going to play safety, which is, that's where Coach Elko wants him. He said, I recruited him to play safety. He's playing safety. I think that I like the transfers in that room a lot, but I think Bryce Anderson, he's back home. He's in his natural spot. I think he's going to really thrive there. And he did a lot well at the nickel position, but I just think Bryce Anderson is going to be a much happier player playing safety. I think he can be a ball hawk. I think he's going to play really good out there for the Aggies. So those are my keys for the Aggies at each position. Let me know in the YouTube comments, are there any players that I named that you would have had somebody else? I want to hear y'all's thoughts on that. Let me know if there's a player that you would have had at a position that I didn't have? Let me know in the YouTube comments. I'm really curious to hear that. Got a few mailbag questions, including, hey, is Mike Elko going to win an SEC championship during his time at Texas A&M? We'll answer that and some other fun questions coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I got to tell you about our friends over at Monopoly Go. All right, game off. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying, flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there is just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much to get. Unique stickers you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day. We all know those games on your phone where it's the same thing. Not Monopoly Go. It's always changing. Constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or robot machines. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent. Frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now, free on Google Play or the App Store. Game on. So, a couple mailbag questions before we call it a day here on Locked On Aggies. With the first being, will Coach Elko win an SEC championship during his time at Texas A&M? This is a really fun discussion to have, and this could be a whole episode. This will probably be a potential episode when we get deeper into the summer. I'm going on the trip to Spain, and so I'll have to pre-record a few episodes. Maybe that'll be one. But I guess the conversation here is this. Is he going to have the talent to do it? I think so. They're already doing a great job recruiting. Talent is A. B is developing the talent. Seems like they're doing that. I've been very pleased with how the development has gone. I love what I'm seeing from a great example. That is Ruben Owens, who we just spent some time talking about, a player that has developed. And I think he's developing to a really, really good spot. So I like what he's doing there. And then continuing to use the transfer portal well. I don't like being a team that relies on the portal. Now, this season's different. You lost a lot of players during a coaching change is part of that. So I like the way they used the portal this year. I think that is part of it. So I don't, what I'm saying is I don't think every season is going to look like this when it comes to the transfer portal. I think you're going to see this happen some, but not a ton. And that's the reality of what happened this season. So does he win an SEC championship? I mean, he checks all the boxes. Is it going to happen? Obviously, I don't have a crystal ball to look into the future, but I just have a feeling if he's here for 10 years, he's going to bump into one, and I think they're going to make a run in the playoff once. But the good news about the expanded playoff is you don't have to win an SEC championship to make the playoff. And, of course, you didn't previously because we saw Bama and Georgia in there, pretty constantly. We saw both of them. So you don't have to win the SEC. But now, it makes it a lot. You could see 6 SEC teams make this playoff. But that's my take there. Let me know y'all's answer to that one in the comments. I'm very interested to hear what y'all have to say. And then the next question is, how many more portal additions do I see happening? My take on this is pretty simple. I think it's going to be 3. I think you might see them go get another 2 offensive linemen and a receiver. I think you could also make, and then if it was going to be 4, I think it'd be 2 receivers, 2 linemen. We haven't heard a lot of portal chatter over these last few days. I haven't seen anything when it comes to visits and this and that. It's been quiet. And this will be a conversation perhaps for Monday. If we don't see any kind of portal stuff over the weekend, any visits scheduled, anything like that. And remember, the portal is closed to people entering the portal. Obviously, people that are in the portal still have time to pick their next destination. I've seen other schools, other SEC schools, planning visits for the middle of May. Like this stuff might not happen immediately. So just because it's not going crazy right now doesn't mean that they're done in the portal. But I do think that there are a few things I would still add to this roster. So I think 3 to 4, maybe 2 to 3 would be the answer. I would say 3 is the number that I'm going to say. I'm going to say 3 more additions. I think a couple offensive lineman, and a receiver. And then I really feel like we feel good about defensive line, quarterback, running back, tight end. I feel good in the secondary. If you wanted to add a secondary player, I feel fine. You already added a linebacker. I think it's really just, and then we feel good D-line. I think it's really just a couple more offensive linemen and the receiver. If you add at those positions, I think it'll help. And if you don't, I don't think the world's going to end. So that's my opinion there. Let me know y'all's answers to both of those questions in the YouTube comments. But that is going to do it for this week here at Locked On Aggies. It's Derby weekend. I've got a ton of Kentucky family. So any Kentucky Derby fans, ask in the comments. I can tell you who's going to win. I do have a crystal ball for that. So everybody enjoy the Derby. Hope everybody has an outstanding weekend, and we will see you on Monday.